Oh my God, that sounds terrible. What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel, Nick's Garage Builds. I'm gonna do something a bit different today. Normally I build something from scratch or adapt something crazy to, a razor, but I wanna go a different route. This is actually an already electric bike that is pretty fast. It's by a company named Kuberg, not very popular in the States. They didn't do very well. They had importing issues and they've just had a lot of quality issues. I picked this bike up really cheap from a buddy in California, broke it all down, and I shipped it in 2 boxes. I thought I got a pretty good deal, but getting into it now and I'm beginning to question it. As you saw from the earlier video, I have some major motor issues. The rear shock is completely blown and there's nothing left of it. The front fork in the right side is leaking and there's a nick in the stanchion, which is causing it to leak likely. These tires are soft and they just don't do very well. I want to go through this bike. I want to get it back to its former glory, even better hopefully. See if I enjoy it or not, do some rides on it and see if it's a bike for me, and see what you guys think. So just to show some of the stuff up close, this was a $500 bike, so we're not talking cheap, but yet they still have this super cheap D&M RCP3 rear shock that came on it from the factory. Cracks me up. Like, that's a $120 shock on Amazon. The front forks are a Manitou Dorado. Not a bad fork, they're pretty sweet actually. You can see it's got this nick right there, and if you look, we got some dampness, it's pretty wet. It's leaking over time and it's causing some play. You saw the motor and its terrible spin. These rear tires, my buddy said he did 1 or 2 rides on this, and if you look, just straight up chunks missing out of it. These are the softest ply tires. This is a 20-inch tire. I mean, this is a very goofy bike. I'm not sure how I feel about the whole ratio of this thing with its tires and its stance. It's definitely super strange. My buddy put his little grips on there that I'll probably get rid of, and stuff like that. But first, I think before I get anything, I need to fix this drivability issue. I mean, if I can't even ride the bike, or drive it, who cares what the suspension is like? So I want to go into some quick in-depth diagnosis on this motor, figure out if it's a Hall effect sensor issue. I don't think it's battery because the battery seems to come on fine. Or, if it's something internal, maybe we have a bad phase or something like that. Anyway, we're going to start diagnosis now. All right, so we'll just start out with the, pretty simple diagnosis. Because the motor spins backwards first, I want to check the Hall effect sensor. So there's 3 phase wires. They're all color coded. And then I have this one connector, and this has to be our Hall effect sensor. I'm just going to cut the sheathing on the back of it, and then I'll probably back probe on the back side of the connector and take some measurements because the key's got to be on. We need the voltage on, and then we need to turn the tire slowly, and we'll see if the Halls switch from probably 0 to 5 volts. We have 5 wires, so 3 should be Hall effect, and then we should have a power and ground. Looks like they have a 6-wire running to it, which should be for motor temp, but they must not monitor that. So I'm normally very much against these, but I'm fairly certain this motor is shot. So I'm just going to use these probes that stab the wire, which normally I'm very much against. But if I wasn't so confident, from my readings, is that this is a fairly common, not failure, but it's not uncommon for these motors to do that. There's 5 volts. Okay. Oh, okay. So one of them's ground. and see how it's switching, going from 0 to 4.5, 0 to 4.5. That means one of them's a ground that I'm on. Very likely my black one because it's right polarity, and we're switching. So that Hall sensor should be good. Maybe brown is my power. Yep, brown's my power. Okay, so yellow is a Hall phase. Green, bam, switching. 4 volts down to 0, 4 volts down to 0. So that phase is reading. And last, gray, 4 volts down to 0, back around, up to 4 volts. I mean, that tells me right now that every Hall sensor is reading properly. That means that the motor knows its position. So if we're going backwards, I feel like we have a bad phase. I'm gonna do a quick resistance check of the phases and see if they're balanced or not. So this is an AC motor, which means all these phases are actually connected. I know that doesn't sound right because you would think you send electricity to one phase at a time, and you do in a way, but all of them should be connected and the resistance between them should be really low. So you should just go in a line that it keeps changing. And my guess is it keeps changing because the rotor's in there. So it's got some weird flux, but look how different the measurements are here. Went up to 125 at one point. And then last but not least, these two, and look at this one is much, much lower. We must be reading through the rotor, which makes sense because it's got to be a permanent magnet, which means it's affecting our currents as it's creating eddy currents. But we need to apply voltage so it would cog to 2 phases, but I don't have the ability to do that. But this one settled on 14, which is weird. Okay, well now it's settled down. About 14, and then these two, and about 12.7. So I will say the phases are definitely not balanced. Well, no, it's going up to 14. I think we need to take it apart and get this rotor looked at. I'm going to take this motor apart. It is sealed. I'm going to mark the area. That way, if it does need to be put back together, I know how it goes back together. Since the Hall sensors are here, I think I'm gonna go that way with it to take the front cover off. That was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. Not too bad. Kind of a, oh, back cover fell off too. Interesting, we got some bits in here. I'm not sure what those are from. The phase wires look very nicely done, actually. It's pretty good. The Hall effects don't seem to have gotten too hot or anything like that. If we look, they look pretty clean, actually. I don't see any signs of a burnt phase. But we can test for that now that it's open too. Both sides look pretty solid. I guess let's test the rotor. I don't have a Gauss meter, is what they call it, so you can test the flux of it. I'm just gonna do, so the magnet's strong there. Okay. Interesting. Wow. Okay, it literally just falls off. And then it gets kind of strong. All right, so from, looks like this rivet down to this rivet, and I know this isn't very scientific, guys, is strong. The minute we get on the other side of this rivet, nothing. So if you look, this side can hold my screwdriver up. This side, not so much. So basically I'm screwed because I have a bad rotor magnets, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's been a few days of intense research on this bike. I know I went over how it wasn't very popular in the US, and it is not popular at all. Basically getting parts for this is almost impossible. This is an extremely abnormal motor that nothing like a Talleria or a Sur uses. I can find like some weird replacement motors, but nothing fits in there like well at all. A lot of it has to do because it's short and just kind of tall, but not nearly as tall like a Sur. Luckily, I was able to get in contact with someone that used to do a dealer in California, and they are able to send me a motor, one that they had left over. But it's gonna be like a couple weeks and a lot more expensive than I thought it was gonna be. In the meantime, I wanna move forward with this project. I also ordered some cool new stickers for the front forks, and I still have to repair that front fork. I also ordered a new rear shock. I think you guys are gonna love it. I probably won't get it in this video, but the shock I ordered is super bad. Downhill mountain bike shock that I think is gonna make this bike feel a lot better. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna spend my time taking off this right side fork, fixing the scratch, and try to go from there. You know, the more I look at these forks, they're all kind of beat up. The stickers are all junk. I'm just gonna take both of them off. I'm gonna order like a new kit, make these things look nice. I know it doesn't add any performance, but there's something about a nice looking bike that I enjoy building. So, unfortunately, I took them apart and I got 1, 2, and my third nick there. I'm gonna have to fix all those. I just use about 3 things for this. I take my little round Dremel tool just to knock down the edge. Well, actually 4 things, because I use brake clean as well. So I knock down the burr that comes from the chip. Then I take some like 5000 grit sandpaper, smooth it over a little bit. Then I'll clean it with the brake clean. And then last I will apply this, which is like a nail varnish. And then I'll wait 24 hours and I'll come back and sand that. You shouldn't have to go crazy. Like, you're just trying to get rid of that top burr that comes from whenever you hit something. So once you get rid of that ridge, then the only thing you're left with is the indentation that the metal has hit. So now it's good for cleaning. I don't want to put too much on there because then that means that's how much more I'm gonna have to sand later. But it's going to sit a little bit higher. That's all just part of the repair process. Build it up, just sand it down. All right, now I just have to leave it sit for 24 hours. I let it sit for 24 hours. I'm gonna hit it with some 1200 grit sandpaper, then probably hit it with some 5000. And last, I'm going to just polish it up with some heavy metal polish. And that should be good. You don't really want to feel it. That one feels really nice. Got one high spot left. Yeah, those feel really nice. All right. You really can hardly even feel that anything's there. I think the transition will be really nice. So the stanchion is fixed. Well, I hope it's fixed. Unfortunately, I had to order the seals and the stickers that I want to replace them with. That's all coming out of the UK, so I need to wait a little bit for that. Same thing with the motor. He says it's coming or he's going to ship it, but that's going to be like a week or two from California, give or take. I don't know. We'll see if it comes in. The rear shock should be here the next day or two, you know, and I'm excited about showing that and showing what I went with. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you really enjoyed it and you like the content, think about subscribing. That would be really helpful. Until next time, hopefully I can get this thing running and we'll get some ride videos in. That would be pretty awesome. Later.